Greetings, everyone. The discourse for today is going to be on the Grail, the Magdalene, and the Divine Feminine in general. I've titled it Magdalene, Returning of the Cup. I'm going to begin by reading to you from the rather large Grail issue that I published through Temple Doors in 1998. This portion that I'm reading to you is basically a description of what the Grail means from the Thothic perspective, from the Thothakasha, when he refers to the Grail as a lineage, a device to carry the blood, the DNA energy of the Christed being. And we're not speaking religiously here, but of the universal Christed essence. And so I'm going to read to you now. Beyond the confines of the Grail as legend, symbol, and history is a sacred program designed by the Lords of Light to re-impress upon this planet the encoding of the universal Christos, the God Self in mankind. As a mystery, the Grail offers us a holy union within our very selves to the Christic consciousness. This Christ consciousness of which we speak is not confined to the Christian religion, but permeates all substance and elements of life. Yeshua carried the template or master design of the Christic program to completion in his own body, so that he became the host for all humanity in achieving our individual Christic mantles. But according to Thoth, Yeshua never intended for factions of mankind to form a separative religion around him. While he was a divine and unique incarnation upon the planet, his mission was to offer humanity a portal to the Christ within every human being. The Grail mystery is the knowledge of the Christ and its work in the earth as a sacred program of light, which began long before the actual birth of Yeshua, yet was fulfilled in the earth itself through him, as he opened his soul to be merged with the Christic archangel and the sun spirit of this solar system. Through bringing these holy powers together in his heart, mind, soul, and body, Yeshua was able to effect deep internal alterations in the destiny of the earth and its inhabitants. While the sun spirit of this solar system is a limited matrix, the Christ being incarnate in the man Yeshua absorbed a lesser frequency of this solar sun and opened his eternality to act as a Grail Cup for the greater sun spirit of the Earth's true galactic system in Orion. Thus, through the Christed Yeshua, we were given a touch point to the greater matrix of our true origin in the universe, which goes beyond function and purpose of this cosmic hierarchy. Their purpose is one of reordering decaying light programs of the divine that have become trapped in matter worlds of experience. The incarnation of the Christ in the earth was designed to allow matter to receive grace and recapitulate its essence of divinity into the Metatronic full light spectrum of the universe. This was intended to be accomplished in a far more advanced and sustained manner than through the original program of the cosmic hierarchy, which Thoth also refers to as the Jehovah principle. Even though the cosmic hierarchy serves the Christic mission in the earth, it is not the overseer of it. This authority is held alone in the Christ being itself, which has become an amalgam of cosmic Christ, divine essence, archangelic Christ, divine being, and solar logos, divine word, through the incarnation of the Christ in Yeshua, or Yeshua, which is his most ancient name. The body of Christ thus became the Master Yeshua. His form in the matter realm of trapped light was and is the first sheath of the Christed vessel, the chalice from which we drink to receive our bodies of light. The second sheath of this vessel is the divine word. The third sheath is the divine being. The divine essence is not a sheath of the Grail, but a drink from the vine, the most spiritual solvent which the Grail Cup contains. This truth is irrespective of one's religion or belief system, and thus includes all God-oriented beliefs and spiritual seeking, and represents an individual passage of Christic communion directly between the soul and God. The Grail Cup or chalice, as a symbol, represents the receptacle by which all sustenance is received from the divine and thus distributed to humankind and the earth. In its purest essence, this also equates to divine consciousness as well. It is the consciousness of the Christ which allows us to transcend the limitations of this realm of Mazaroth, this is the full universe, through the redemptive principle, and subsequently reap the plenitude which is the inherent nature of the kingdom of God. The Mazaroth, again, I'm going to state this because I skipped and I didn't read you everything in between. The Mazaroth is the 12 zodiacal signs, and that zodiac itself. Now the Mazaloth goes beyond that universal signature. So to continue, when we open to become the Grail receptacle and receive the Christic component within our own being, then all that is required for all levels of sustenance is present. The higher worlds of Mazaloth can thus be seen to be a stellar Grail cup which overfloweth with the rich infusions from even higher worlds of light, and which share the divine bounty with lower world systems such as our own, even as Yeshua himself shared himself with this world. These concepts of unlimited divine supply, sharing, love, and compassion are at the heart of the Grail consciousness. As we explore the deeper esoteric and cosmic knowledge relative to the Grail mysteries, we mustn't lose sight of these basic tenets, for to do so would result in a scholarly discourse on the Grail and not a true Grail initiation. I'm pausing here also to state that the Grail as a DNA blood receptacle is a very important element of this, because that's where the Christic flow presents itself in our being. And so we as human beings in incarnated form are the Grail bearers. That's what the Grail is about. If you take incarnation out of the picture, we really don't have a Grail scenario. So this is about incarnating the Christic light of the universe. Again, beyond the boundaries of religious format. And as we do so, we become the Grail, the cup, that vessel that is filled with light. Thoth refers to the Grail as far back as Lemuria, or Mu rather, and how the energies of that system entered our experience, the world experience, when the being he calls Lord Melchizedek entered the earth from Venus, or through Venus, and established the first order of priests and priestesses, to use our vocabulary, attendant to the 12 zodiacal signs, or the Mazaroth. This was establishing a format, an interface, so that we could actually access the Mazaloth at the point in time when we were ready to do so. Now, unfortunately, the Order of the Heaven Houses, as it was called in Lemuria, eventually was destroyed by some renegade priests and helped with a few priestesses, and took down that whole format there. Because the priests wished the power that the female divine feminine priestesses were holding as receptacles. Now, the balanced way to do this is male and female together. And Melchizedek set it up that way. But the females were the one that received the channeling, shall we say, the transmissions. And the male priests had their role in disseminating it. They weren't just gophers. They had a real role in preaching and teaching. But the powers that be in regard to the human element, decided that was not enough. And so the male patriarchal system began to sort of insert itself into that whole format, and at one point became quite violent, and many priestesses and priests were killed in the temples there. And since this was a violation of sacred law, it repeated itself in Atlantis, pretty much the same thing. And it's repeated itself in other situations and places, as we know, throughout the world at different times. This isn't to make bad on the males, on the polarity of the male or the human males. It is because we all incarnated in both sexes, and women have been played roles in this downfall as well, in embodiment as females. So, but it's a matter of understanding that the Grail holds so much power and energy that no one wants to return the cup. And that's something we're going to get into just a little bit later, but I just thought I'd interject that at this moment here. Actually, I want to make a correction to that. I said no one wants to return the cup. Obviously, that's not true, but that's a strong element in this whole tug of war concerning the Grail energetics. And so we see with the priestesses of the heaven house, the first Magdalens. Now, when we address the term Magdalene, we are addressing various components. One of, obviously, is the very physically real person who lived and breathed, who was Mary Magdalene, who became the vessel for, according to Thoth, one child of Yeshua's after his release from this life. He came to her in another body, shall we say, the light body, not the auric, but the light body. And she conceived of him and had a son, John Martinus. There's a whole story to that. But that's the one person, that's the woman. And her soul was obviously a very evolved one, and she still maintains a frequency on this planet. But if we look beyond, going back further in time, we see this same soul in Lemuria as a priestess. And that is the soul in that incarnation that the crystal skull was created of, that being, which is now sequestered in the cavern in Mount Waialeale on Kauai. And I have the hosting skull. It's just a contemporary skull, crystal skull, but it channels it, you might say, in my home here, looking out to the mountain. So that's, again, another story. But as you see, Mary Magdalene, if we're talking about her soul, it goes way back in time on this planet, and it goes way forward on this planet. So in that regard, she was present in the heaven houses. She was present there with Lord Melchizedek. And so these women, these heaven house women, we could call Magdalenes if we wanted to follow the thread of the term and how it's used with connection to the whole Grail systemic function on the planet of incarnating the spiritual Christic energy. And so is there really any separation between the Grail and the Magdalene? Well, there is. I don't know if separation is the right word because all is one, but there is a differential between the two, because the Grail encompasses the whole package that we've been speaking of here, and the Magdalene is the divine feminine that ushers forth the solvent. So you could almost see the Magdalene as continually, nurturing the fluid in the cup, the liquid light in the cup, while the cup itself is the receptacle that has been born in our bodies through time and space, through the incarnational process. But of course, they're obviously very closely related. The Magdalene comes out of the Grail. And of course, Yeshua is the Christic form of that. While he's in male embodiment, he is really androgynous in this whole purpose, if you understand the principle involved, because the Christic element embraces both male and female equally. We might see the Apostle John as representing more the male aspect to the Magdalene's female. We're stepping outside of the historical version now, and we're looking at it from a living archetype presentation. And so then, Thoth gave to me in this writing and channeling that I received, back in 1998, the first 7 Mazarothic thresholds of Christic initiation. And I'm going to read these because I feel that they represent the essence, the quality of the Grail. The first is moment of awakening. All subtle emanations of the divine coalesce in the heart to free the mind and prepare the supersensitive self for divine receipt. The second, as above, so below. The greater heaven is seen as a reflection in the realm of the lesser world. Fallen aspects of self become radiant in the redemptive power of light. The third, heart and mind trinitization. Heart and mind are trinitized with the soul, forming a sacred cup or crucible for spirit. The self opens as the lily rose to receive the dew of heaven. 4, the foundation stone established. This foundation or cornerstone is divine reason manifest in the corporeal realm. Here, thought is taken to a new octave of awareness where it is no longer a process but a condition of resolution beyond time. The mystery is revealed, and the revelation is found within the human body as a path to the stars. 5th, the body divine. The self is absorbed into its matter form. The self therefore transfers its key of stewardship of the body to the spiritual soul, which then becomes the morphogenic mind of the flesh. Here the Adam Kadmon, the universal template of divine form, is given greater activation within the human element. 6, the anointing. The soul is anointed by the greater spiritual orders and receives divine grace, which is given forth in stages of initiation through the 6th threshold of the Mazaroth. And 7, the sevenfold mantle of divine authority. The soul incarnate is given power and authority over specific Christic service in the world. This authority is under the auspices of the 7 holy stations of the earth. These are the 7 appointments of Christic communion with mankind in the earth. It is through these 7 centers in the stars, the Pleiades, 7 centers in the body, the chakras, and 7 centers in the earth, 7 sites of holy ground, did the Christ enter the field of human experience. When mankind has accomplished receiving the sevenfold mantle to its fullest extent, the 7 seals will be lifted, and the true soul of the planet will be revealed within the heart of each and every being on earth at that time. This goes on and on, but that's the part that I really wanted to read to you in regard to what the embodiment of the Grail really means. I think it's like strikes the heart of it, you might say. With special attention on the sevenfold mantle of divine authority, I'd like to just review that again. The soul incarnate is given power and authority over specific Christic services in the world. The soul incarnate is given power and authority over specific Christic service in the world. And one of these stations is the 7 sites of holy ground. Now, this can relate to thousands of sites. 7 is being used as a terminology of divine numbers. There might be 7 points that are especially prominent, but we're speaking here of all holy ground. Of course, all the earth is holy, but we're speaking of those places that have been anointed as holy ground, so to speak, by intentional consciousness. This means, and this is where we come to returning the cup. There's a lot of factors that relate to that returning of the cup, but one very strong one is in journeys to sacred places, when people are going on a whole pilgrimage together, and you have a group of people, and it can even happen with one person, but let's look at a group right now, and you have someone taking them through, and they're doing these sacred things at these sacred places. While that is going on, there is the sevenfold mantle of divine authorities building and building and building. When we complete that process, the cup that has been filled now must be returned to the source. And that is an inner spiritual calling to give back the power. You're not giving away your power. You're giving it back to the source. And when you give it to the source, you give it to the deepest, most purest part of your own being. But it must be relinquished. And we're looking at this from the perspective of, people going to sacred sites. But it can be applied anywhere and everywhere that human beings set out to achieve. And they call forth their inherent power of divine authority over the earth. And you can see it in the Bible. The Bible says, not that I'm big on saying everything in the Bible is true, but the Bible has substance. It does. No matter how much it's been raked over and changed, there is substance there of divine spirit. And it says that, man was given authority over the earth, and she was. And it's a sacred authority. That doesn't mean they can go around killing and raping and burning and pillaging. That's not the kind of authority that, quote, God, unquote, had in mind. So we have to look at it from the perspective that we do have this divine authority, and it builds and grows when we set out to achieve something. We draw upon it. And when we're working with sacred energies and we're involved in a sacred path, it's very easy for us to not realize that we have not given it back, that we have built it, grown it, presented it, put it forth, and yet we have not given it back to Source. So this, Thoth is telling me, is the greatest message of the Grail. And it's also the greatest message of the Magdalene within the Grail, because the divine feminine is the leader. It's the I don't know if leader is the right word. It is the precursor of all divine elementation. That is, bringing the divine into a physical purpose on the planet Earth. If it doesn't pass muster, so to speak, with the divine feminine, then it is a shallow, empty tool. Once it has been received in the cup, in the divine feminine elixir, then the male energy can inseminate it and bring it forth and flower it and take it out into the world. That is the heralding. The male energy is that of the heralder, the sacred divine heralder. But it must be garnered from the cup of the divine feminine. And if that cup has not gone through its proper cyclic function of taking in and giving back, taking in and giving back, then it's already distorted before the heralder even touches it. So you have a responsibility then as divine recipients in the physical incarnation, whether you're male or female, if you're on the Grail path, to always give the cup back after it has been filled. Now I'm going to change pace just a bit and go into another area of all of this, a current situation that is going on the planet. Those of you who have been keeping track with the whole May 29th, 2016 date, and the 3 star streams, or what I'm relating to fiber optics, the 3 fiber optics connecting into the planet through the Mongolia, coming into the center of the central sunatome of the Earth, and back up through Mount Uluru in Australia, through the portal that opened up there, an ancient portal, but opened wider, and coming out and coming across the oceans, the dolphins carrying it through the oceans of the Earth, and through the water, disseminating it through the water, through the entire planet, underneath the Earth, on top of the Earth, everywhere. And again, these channels, these 3 channels allow Earth now, it is directly to receive from the central universe, the neutral universe of what Thoth calls the Atosic universe. This is our mother universe, and we're receiving the mother's milk directly now from that. A lot of things are going to be transpiring because of it, and one of it I'm going to relate to you now because it is part of the whole Grail expression. I don't have the whole story of the whole picture yet, but I want to relate to you this part that I feel is very important. We have 3 points we're looking at here. One is Mount Uluru in Australia. Another is Chateau, the chapel in Chateau specifically, and specifically further, the statue of the devil that sits in there, which is representing the Rex Mundi. And then we have the chapel, Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, in Edinburgh, that has, what I have seen, underneath the floor, a chamber that has a device that connects to this. I will explain more about that device. So we have these 3 points that connect. And very soon, not all at the same time, but now Uluru has already been set. It's opened up for its work. Chateau, it will happen in Chateau, and then it will happen in Rosslyn. Within just a few months period of time, all this will line up together. And this is how it will line up. In Chateau, in the chapel there, this chapel is highly symbolically decorated, and there's all kinds of mysteries involved. Anyone that's into you can Google Chateau and get the whole. There's been books and books and books written about it. Dan Brown incorporates it in his novels and all of this. So Chateau is a big deal, and a lot of people have a lot of different ideas about it. I'm not a scholar on Chateau and that whole thing, but I only know basically a little bit about what I've read and then what Thoth has revealed to me, which isn't really a whole lot. He hasn't discussed it a great deal with me. But when he does, he says it's a very important point on the planet for various reasons. So the chapel is highly symbolic, which is the same thing that the Rosslyn Chapel is, which we'll get to in a moment. The statue of the devil, and I think I need to show you this, so I'm going to pause just a moment here. All right, here we have it. This fellow here looks pretty scary, I know. He actually represents the Rex Mundi of the planet. That's a whole other topic, and I have written on that from the Thothic perspective. And I won't go into all of it, but the Rex Mundi is the axis it's the divine axis that holds the earth not just around the sun. It doesn't have really that much to do with that. It's the axis that holds it in place to the spiritual programming of the entire universal spectrum of our holographic universe, from the perspective, from the placement of the earth at the center of it. The oldies had it right when they said the earth was the center of the universe, because the earth is the center of our universe if you look at it from holographic perspective. And so you don't want to mess with the Rex Mundi. You don't want to get it out of sync, out of order. So that's why some of the ancients put a devil there, boo, stay away from here. The devil's going to get you if you touch it. But of course, that's all just the way they chose to scare you away. So we have the devil there because, a lot of havoc can be wreaked by messing with the Rex Mundi. Okay, so taking a look at this statue. Now, I was shown the foot of this being. Now, I've not looked at this picture in a long time. Wasn't even sure his foot was being shown, but in my mind, I saw it. And here it is. You can see the little foot sticking out there. And, of course, it's all one block of stone. The foot isn't movable from the stone. But I saw the foot move. So I saw the whole stone move so that the foot, the toe where it's pointing, the big toe, it was turned in a different angle. Not extreme. It was very, very subtle. Now, will this happen? How much will this happen physically? Something physical is going to happen concerning the statue. Maybe nobody will know it but me. And you, now that I'm telling you. I don't know. But I saw this happen very surely. And it moved. And when it moved, it changed the orientation of something underneath the foundation of the chapel. I didn't actually see what's underneath there, but I did see what's underneath Rosslyn. So we're going to move over to Rosslyn for a moment. So here we have Rosslyn Chapel in Edinburgh, Scotland, and it was created by a Templar in the 1700s, I believe, or it might have even been a little earlier. I'm not sure. Again, I don't have my history correct on all of these things, but I have been there physically into this chapel. What I saw was beneath the chapel floor, and the device was a large sort of motley-looking stone, water-worn. I now know it was water-worn. And on top of that stone, and it wasn't like granite or anything, it looked very soft, kind of. I don't know what kind of sandstone, I don't know. But it was kind of worn away and mottledy, and a big old chunk of it. And inside, sticking out of that was this little pillar, and it wasn't a fancy pillar, it was just like a stem. And the stem itself had a hole through it. Went all the way through, rather large hole, went all the way through in the center of it. And on top of the stem were two rocks, stones, one sat on top of the other. Now I saw it was in a small chamber like a well, and around the edges of this well, and I would say that it is a well, was a water line. There was no water in there, but there was a water line, and there was calcification on this object up to the point where the hole was. So I know that water had been in there, and I was shown in my mind that it had been. Now, when the devil's foot in the Chateau turns, then not at the same time, but at some point in all of this process, the stone, the water will come back. The water table will come back inside the Rosslyn well. And I'm receiving now, it will also come back inside the chamber beneath the Chateau. In order for that foot to turn, it all has to do with water, hydraulics. So the water will have to come back under there, and the water will have to come back into this well that I did see under Rosslyn. And it will turn, in Rosslyn, it will turn the stem so that the hole lines up a certain way with an energy path. And then beneath Uluru, there is a crystal pillar, and I don't see very much about that or know very much about that at this time, but it lines up with that. So when we have all of this lining up, we start releasing let me see, how can I put this? It's like the floodgates open. It's like the floodgates open for Gaia. And all her beautiful force field can start pulsing back into the water. And we are, 75% water? It's pulsing back into us, into our blood, which of course affects the whole Grail kindredship consciousness. And this is what the Dweller crystal skulls are all about too, holding that energy and frequency. So all of this starts aligning again. The water is the thing. And when Gaia brings her codes back into the water, the Grail of the earth starts filling up with the codes. Here is a picture of the Magdalene Tower at Rennes le Chateau. The Magdalene energies are very strong there because of the legend that Mary Magdalene came there. And indeed she did. Thoth's story is a little different than the one that is told by Dan Brown and others, but nevertheless it is a Magdalene site, as is Iona and some other places we're going to explore a little later here. Well, I really can see that this is turning into a series for me on the Grail. I didn't realize that when I started this one, but I see that's kind of what it needs to be. And so that's what I'm going to make it. I will conclude this particular video, although, yeah, I think I will. I'm talking to myself while I'm making the video because I'm not going to edit this, folks. These long ones are really hard to do all of that, and it takes a lot of time to get it done. So when I'm doing a long talk, I just don't edit it. So you're hearing me think out loud here. But I think I want to next talk about this sacred journey that is being undertaken that I feel very connected to. So before I end this video, I think I'm going to include it in this rather than as a separate entity, because it so much has to do with what we've just been discussing here. I have just been discussing here. Allison McLean is doing a sacred pilgrimage called From the Sovereign Woman and Allison McLean of the Clan McLean Comes a Call, a heralding for the awakened Grail Queens to forge an alliance, a promise made before the birth of time. Join us for the journey of a lifetime to the Holy Isles of Scotland this September as we collectively facilitate the fulfillment of the Iona prophecy, the heralding of Grail Queens. Now, the journey will begin September 11th through the 21st, 2016. I just met Allison on Skype, but we have mutual friends. William Bueller, who's been a colleague of mine since before Methuselah, way back in 1977, and he has been incorporating my Thothic teachings and work in his synergy and sacred geometry work that he's been doing all of this time, and he has a rather spread out synergy groupings all over, and they sometimes meet in gatherings that they all come together for, and they have their own little groups that go on. And Allison is somehow a part of all of this, and she knows Bill well, and she draws upon his work as well. And also, she knows my dear friends Barry and Teresa Dunford in Scotland. I contributed to Barry's book, The Holy Land of Scotland, just a little bit, and we visited him when Simeon and I did the journey to Scotland in 1998. So we have mutual friends, but it's more than that. When I saw this was presented to me, someone passed it to me, and I looked at it, I thought I really, really had a feeling about it. There was something that connected to me, my work, whatever. I can't really say entirely, but it just felt good. And then Allison asked for a session with me, which I gave her recently, and we discussed a lot of what came out here in this video that I'm presenting to you. So, as I was giving the reading for her, Thoth said that I would be participating in this. Now, as most of you know who follow me, I'm not going to jump on a plane and go anywhere. My health doesn't permit that, nor do my finances. But I feel that what Thoth was saying, he said I would be present. And it wasn't just, oh, well, I'll be there in spirit, like people say. No, this was more than that. And I don't really know how it's going to outpicture, but I feel that I will be on this journey in some way, and that I'm supposed to be. I also, as I'm looking at this, and I have talked to Allison, and we've discussed all of it, I feel that these particular women that are going to be collecting for this journey are going to be guided there to perform a specific task, as she calls it, fulfillment of the Iona prophecy. Now, I'm not speaking for her because I don't know all that relates to that from her perspective and what she's bringing through on this. But from my Thothic perspective, I do believe it connects deeply to the returning of the cup and bringing these energies into full circulation so that they are returned in a way they haven't been in a long, long time. They must be gathered first and then returned. And these women will be able to do that with enough purity and clarity of heart that it will represent, not only represent, but it will be the surrogate for all the divine feminine on the planet. That doesn't mean that everything is accomplished. It just means that something is accomplished, something of great import to the whole program of light coming through the Grail Magdalene receptacle. So that's a mouthful, I know, and I'm kind of feeling my way through my feelings as I speak here, so my words may not entirely make sense. It's coming from my heart-centered consciousness, really, and it's hard to put into words. But I feel very connected to this specific journey. All of these journeys, these sacred journeys, and all the work that's being done is of great value, and I'm not placing one above the other, but I'm just saying that this particular one has this particular function, I do believe, and it is very timely with all that has been going on from the May 29th scenario to what's coming up actually June and July. Some of these alignments are going to be made with the devil's foot and the well, but the actual flowing of the energy and all that's going to be taking place with it will be more in September and August. So this is really perfect for that. And that's why I'm so keen on this particular journey. And so if you're a female feeling called to be on this trip with Allison, and I feel it's going to be a really special one, please click the link that's accompanying this video that will take you to her to sign up for this. I would appreciate your using that special link, because after I spoke with Allison and we started talking about all this, and I was relating to her just what I told you about the specialness of this particular journey, and actually just before we started the conversation, she IM'd me that she would like to help my cause in all the work that I do by donating from her journey, from those who come aboard, the fees that are taken to my work. So those of you who come through me, just the ones who come through me to her, she will donate a small portion of that to my efforts. And I'm really appreciative of that. So if you wouldn't mind using the link I supply you, then that would be able to be facilitated. One of the places that Allison will be journeying with her ladies is the Isle of Iona. Now, I wasn't ever able to make it there on our Scotland journey, and I so regret it because I feel very, very connected to Iona personally. But from the Thothic perspective, it was here that Mary Magdalene came to conceive and give birth to the one child that Thoth states they had, a son, John Martinus. And this was accomplished after Jesus' resurrection, when he was in a subtle light body. That's a whole story to that I won't go into here, but suffice to say, this is where she birthed a child. She left this child here to go further on her journey, and they reunited later, but she really didn't leave him. She left him physically, but she was able to come to him and him to see her and to be nourished by her during this whole time. So it's not like, oh my gosh, she left her child behind. It's not the kind of thing we understand. It's of a higher elementation. But physically, yes, she left him there in the care of the priestesses of Iona, and one priestess brought him over to Glastonbury when he was about, I don't remember the exact age, 6 or 7, to be schooled and trained there in a deeply sacred process. And he lived there for most of his life, although he did travel to France to be with her, with Mary, and there were other places he did and things he did. But in any case, this isle is a very, very sacred part of that whole journey, and we could see the priestesses of Iona as being Magdalens. So let's look at the Magdalene for a moment when we're viewing this beautiful picture. The Magdalene is representative, as I believe I stated previously, of all the aspects. Her as a physical female, her as an archetype, and also the energy that permeates this whole Grail experience. So any woman that is embodying the divine feminine and allowing the water in her body, the blood and water, to become infused with the Grail energy, she is a Magdalene. And to the degree that she becomes infused with it is the degree that she holds this Magdalene energy in its purity. And so if we look at the priestesses of Iona in their guardianship of this child of Yeshua and Mari, certainly they were Magdalens. So if you're going on this journey with Allison, you're going to the island where the Magdalens really first presented themselves as such. And Mary Magdalene was there to set in the flesh, to set this into motion, which she did. Another location on Allison's journey that I wish to bring to your attention is the island of Staffa. It's a very unique place, as you can see by this picture here. I mean, it's really quite incredible. Whoops, that's nothing. Here we go. Over here. Just look at it. And here. And here. This is Fingal's Cave. Now, according to Thoth, Staffa is the 0 point on the planet where this time tsunami occurred, which was created by Atlanteans' attempt to save Atlantis. And they did sort of a Montauk-y thing. It wasn't Montauk, but it was a time, going back in time kind of thing. And they meant well, but it didn't work out well. And there was a time tsunami, which certainly did destroy Atlantis and changed the timelines on the planet. A lot of things happened. I'm not going to go into that, but not with this video. But in any case, this is 0 point of that occurrence on the planet. And as such, it has literally encased a very divine node on the planet that needs to be opened up and released, to be aired out, to be brought to life again. Mama Gaia has this stone spear stuck in her body, and it's all coagulated and hardened with dried blood, and it's never healed. It's festering underneath. The spear needs to be removed, the waters need to wash it clean, and the healing needs to begin. And this is the point where this needs to happen. This is a sacred site. It's a very, very prominent place for divine light on the planet. It's not negative by any means, but it's wounded. You see, when the time tsunami occurred, the hierarchy, let's call it that, let's use some kind of a word to describe these beings and whatever that are divinely orchestrating and overlighting, they helped us out because they didn't want the planet to completely self-destruct from this, which it would have. Not only the physical planet would have destructed, it would have completely been erased from the timeline, and this would not have been good for the whole program that was set into place, to say the least. So they rushed the energy of the wave. They brought it into the point on the planet that could most sustain it and bring it down and absorb it. And that was this point. Now, the crust of the earth has shifted a little bit, but nevertheless, it's still the point because it was a rather large point, not just this one little island. This is the remnants of that blast. And so I truly believe that those who can work with this node, whether they journey there like Allison's going to do with her ladies, or whether you're just doing it internally, working with releasing the energies here, with healing this place, would be a very good thing to do. Every one person counts. You know, I know it's a big world, but not really. Every one person counts in what they do on this planet and how they conduct themselves and the energies they put forth in the healing work that they do on themselves, first of all. Because as you heal yourself, you heal the planet. So here's just a quick preview of the 10-day journey that Allison will be taking the ladies on. And they're staying at the Melville Castle, outskirts of Edinburgh. And then, of course, they're going to be seating the Stargate at Rosslyn Chapel. This is really an incredible place, folks. I have been there, actually, in the physical. And then we go, here's the pillar in the temple. Then they're going to Linsenfarn, the seat of the Grail Queen. Oh, and going to Kalilek. I can't pronounce it, but I love this place. I've not been there. Let's see, or have I? They're going into Glenline, which I have been to. So maybe then after that, they're going to the Isle of Mull, which I have not. Dwart Castle, I'm not too familiar with that. And then, of course, Iona and Staffa. And returning to Edinburgh by way of Fortingall, where I have been. And this is an incredible place here. And I'm not sure where this place is. Edinburgh, oh yes, Roxenberg Hotel. So that is the trip. And also, I have been told some other goodies that I'm not putting in this video, but I will be relating to my special groups and such, because there will be a discount for people who are in my Osiris Arising group and on my standard mailing list, if they come through me to get this offer. So that concludes that. Let me see, my dears, if there's anything else that I wish to relate. I believe this concludes the video now. I will be doing some other Grail videos. I really feel that I want to continue with this. But this is the end of the one called Magdalene Returning the Cup. So I hope you all have enjoyed it and received something from it. And I look forward to continuing the Grail journey with you in my own way.